Greetings and salutations, this is Imperator Vespasian bringing you a Apothecary of Chaos Space Marines. Now, you may have noticed that apothecaries are not the number one choice of option for most Chaos Space Marines, but some Chaos Marines do actually keep apothecaries knocking around. The most important apothecaries will be the apothecaries of the Death Guard, the Nurgle Chaos Space Marines are one of the Chaos Space Marines most guaranteed to have apothecaries because it's kind of the basis of their army. The apothecaries decided to turn to chaos and use their abilities in fighting plagues and diseases in order to spread them. So most Chaos Space Marines don't have apothecaries because there's really not much point to having them. If you have some sort of ailment, the chaos god you worship will probably either fix it or make it worse, or give you something else to take your mind off it. So if you're doing, say, Night Lords, I think Night Lords still have apothecaries, although they may be more into torturing than actually being apothecaries. But I'm sure they can fix up one of your Marines if you need it fixing. And off the top of my head, I don't think any of the other chapters actually go in for apothecaries. Other than the Night Lords and the Nurgle, off the top of my head I can't think of any. But I'm sure apothecaries still knock around, but they tend to be quite cruel and nasty. This is a standard Space Marine, Chaos Space Marine. I've given him a... this is part of a combi weapon, which is from the... one of the Chaos Lords you can get. So I've taken the combi weapon and I've made it into a apothecaries... Sorry, I'm going out of focus a bit. And I made it into an apothecaries, sort of apothecary arm. But in a sort of demonic sort of way. The sort of thing that Chaos would do. That's his apothecary backpack with its lamp and everything, and that's him. I'm quite proud of it actually. I think I did a decent job on it. Given that it was just a normal Space Marine that I've just modified, it seems to have come out quite well. So anyway, the Unhallowed, which I have talked about quite a lot on this channel because that is the primary Chaos Space Marine army that we're doing at the moment. We're going to do one for all four gods, but this is the first one we're doing, which is Slaanesh, because my wife picked it. The Unhallowed Space Marines have only been Chaos for about 3,000 years. They went off onto the Abyssal Crusade and didn't necessarily turn to Chaos, but used Chaos for their own ends and ended up being part of Slaanesh, or been adopted by Slaanesh, or they adopted Slaanesh, one or the other. So I don't see any reason why they wouldn't include apothecaries in their army, because they do still consider themselves to be actual Space Marines, albeit they have spiky bits growing out of their armour, they may have the odd tentacle here or there, but they still consider themselves Space Marines. So the apothecary choice was just an interesting thing I decided to add onto it, because it just seemed to fit with the army, the ethos of the army. It seemed to fit in quite well with them. That they would attempt in some way to maintain their status as Space Marines. Even though they're Chaos Space Marines, they probably don't entirely view themselves as Chaos Space Marines. They more view the Empire as being traitors, because they were betrayed. So, as with any apothecary, you have a standard reductor, which is any units within 6 inches get no leadership penalty because you're trying to protect the gene seed. Space Marine apothecaries will, when a Marine's dead, they will remove the gene seed, and that's very important because you need to create more Space Marines, and you can't get more Space Marines if you have no gene seed to implant in the next initiate, the next recruit. So if your apothecaries are all dead, your chapter dies. you're absolutely stuffed. So a few Space Marine chapters have tried to get around that. Notable the Crimson Fists, who lost all their apothecaries on, is it Rin's World? I might be wrong there, feel free to comment. They lost all their apothecaries, but luckily they were able to appeal to the Imperial Fists because they came from the Imperial Fists, who could supply them with the correct gene seed to carry on. So if you can find your forebear gene seed, then you can actually replace them, but unfortunately you will lose any from your chapter. Which means you're also losing the experience from your chapter, depending on which version of lore you're reading. So the reductor will mean that any Space Marines within 6 inches of the apothecary will they'll have their morale boosted, or they won't have their morale modified, because they will see that they're trying to defend their future, they're defending their gene seed. So even though they're chaos, these particular guys, they are still Space Marines, they still consider themselves Space Marines, they still use gene seed. In fact, most use gene seed, but a lot of them, like the Black Legion and the Iron Warriors and that lot, they get their gene seed from a Imperial gene bank that was that they broke into, and they stole the gene seed from this. There was a world in the middle of nowhere guarded by Imperial Guard and some Imperial Fists, like a squad of Imperial Fists, and the Iron Warriors landed and they captured the gene banks, these huge warehouses underground full of gene seed for Space Marines, for tens of thousands of gene seeds. And that sort of huge lot, first of all, it was used as a bargaining chip to make Proto-Abo into a demon prince. That was part of the bargain. They make him into a demon prince if he can supply this gene seed, and secondly, it meant that the Black Legion now had access to gene seed, because the Black Legion, previously the Lunar Wolves, had no their Marines had mutated so much they couldn't get gene seed from them anymore, and it looked very much like after the 13th Black Crusade their chapter would be over, because they couldn't get new initiates because they had no gene seed. So they're using captured Imperial gene seed, which is the original gene bank from where they originally came from. That was a really long explanation for something very simple, sorry. Right, they also carry the standard medical equipment, which means you can try and save a casualty each turn on a 5+. If you have servitors with you, in this case I can't use servitors, or she can't use servitors, unless you're going to be using sort of, I'm not sure, we don't have any chaos servitors, but I'm sure we could make some if we needed. The servitors can do additional rolls, but that's only for a normal apothecary, so we're not going to pay any attention to what I just said, so ignore it. Servitors don't count, but it does get to save a casualty on a 5+. That's kind of okay. It means you've got a 1 in 3 chance of saving a casualty. That's not really that good, but maybe it's useful. I don't know. So that's pretty much the end of the video. I hope you like the build I've done with it. I thought the scanner looked quite good on his leg, sort of hanging off his belt, because I was kind of thinking that he'd need to find the wounded soldiers, so he'd carry the scanner with him. Just an idea. And that's him. He has blood splattered all over him. The original base he was based on, this is actually a rebase, because I used the old snow and the old snow went yellow, because it does. So I'm using the new snow, which doesn't change colour, so it stays white the whole time. So I changed the base, and the original base had sort of bits of a dead marine on the floor, and it was a much bigger base. This is the smaller base I based it on, and I haven't put the blood on the snow this time, because I think it detracts from the figure. Because if you look at the figure, the way the blood's all splattered on him and everything, which I think looks really cool, if you had blood all over the base, it would detract from the colours. So if you just imagine seeing all red here, it wouldn't mean as much. That's just something I've I thought about when I rebased it. Right, so that's it. That's the end of the video. I'll stop prattling and let you go. Thank you very much for watching. If you've been watching for the last 10 minutes, thank you very much. I can't believe you've actually bothered to watch it this long. I'll leave some pictures at the end of it in close-up, and please like and subscribe, leave any comments, and thank you very much for watching. This has been Imperator Vespasian, wishing you a good day.